The morning sun streamed through the car windows as 12-year-old twins Maya and Zara sat in the back seat, their stomachs churning with excitement and nerves. Their mom glanced at them through the rearview mirror, noticing how they kept adjusting their brand-new white karate uniforms. "You girls sure about this?" she asked with a gentle smile. "It's not too late to change your minds." Maya, the slightly more outspoken of the two, shook her head firmly. "We're ready, Mom. We've been talking about this for weeks." Zara nodded, in agreement, though her voice was quieter. "Besides, we promised each other we'd stick together no matter what." The decision to join karate hadn't come out of nowhere. Just 2 months earlier, both girls had been cornered by older kids at school. During lunch break, the bullies had knocked their books out of their hands and called them names, leaving the twins feeling helpless and angry. That night, they'd watched martial arts videos online for hours, dreaming of being strong enough to defend themselves and others. Their parents had been supportive but cautious. After visiting 3 different dojos around town, they'd finally settled on Master Rodriguez's academy. The place had good reviews, reasonable prices, and most importantly, the instructor seemed genuinely interested in helping kids build confidence, not just teaching them how to fight. As they pulled into the parking lot, the twins could see other students walking into the building. Some looked like complete beginners, carrying their white belts nervously. Others moved with the fluid confidence that comes from years of training, their black belts tied perfectly around their waists. "Remember what we talked about," their mom said as she turned off the engine. "Listen to your instructor, work hard, and don't worry about what anyone else thinks. You're here to learn and grow." The girls nodded and grabbed their water bottles. As they walked toward the entrance, Maya reached over and squeezed her sister's hand. It was something they'd done since they were little kids whenever one of them felt scared or uncertain. The dojo was bigger than it had looked from outside. Mirrors covered one entire wall, and the floors were covered with thick mats that had obviously seen years of use. The smell hit them immediately, a mixture of sweat, rubber mats, and something else they couldn't quite identify. It wasn't unpleasant, just different from anything they'd experienced before. Students were already warming up when they arrived. Some were stretching in perfect splits that made the twins wince just watching. Others were practicing kicks in slow motion, their legs extending impossibly high into the air. In one corner, a group of advanced students were sparring, their movements so fast that Maya and Zara could barely follow what was happening. Master Rodriguez spotted them immediately and walked over with a welcoming smile. He was shorter than they'd expected, but carried himself with the kind of quiet confidence that made you pay attention when he spoke. "Maya and Zara, right?" he said, shaking hands with both girls. "Welcome to our dojo family. I know this might feel overwhelming at first, but everyone here started exactly where you are now." He led them to a quiet corner where several other new students were gathered. "These are your training partners for today," he explained. "Don't worry about remembering everyone's names right away. Focus on learning the basics and everything else will come naturally." As they sat down to change into their uniforms, the twins couldn't help but notice the other students watching them. Most seemed friendly enough, offering encouraging nods or small waves, but there was one group that caught their attention for different reasons. 3 teenagers, all wearing black belts, were gathered near the far wall. They moved with an arrogance that was hard to miss, talking loudly and laughing at jokes that seemed to be at other students' expense. When they noticed the twins looking their way, their conversation stopped for a moment. One of them, a tall girl with her hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, whispered something to the others that made them all smirk. "Don't mind them," said a friendly voice beside them. The twins turned to see an older woman, probably in her 30s, adjusting her brown belt. "Those 3 think they run the place because they've been here the longest. They call themselves the elite squad, but most of us just ignore their attitude." Zara looked worried. "Are they going to give us trouble?" The woman laughed softly. "Not if you focus on your own training and don't let them get in your head. Master Rodriguez doesn't tolerate bullying, but he also expects students to stand up for themselves when necessary." Before the twins could ask what she meant by that, Master Rodriguez called everyone to line up. The class began with basic stretching, which seemed easy enough until they realized how inflexible they were compared to the other students. Simple toe touches that looked effortless when others did them, left Maya and Zara struggling and slightly embarrassed. "Don't worry about it," whispered the boy next to them, who couldn't have been more than 10 years old. "I've been here 6 months and I still can't do half the stretches properly. You'll get there." The encouragement helped, and both girls pushed through the discomfort. After stretching came basic stances. Master Rodriguez showed them how to stand in what he called the ready position. Feet shoulder-width apart, knees slightly bent, hands up to protect their faces. "Martial arts isn't about looking pretty," he explained to the class. "It's about building strength, discipline, and confidence. Every black belt in this room started with wobbly legs and sore muscles. The only difference between them and you is time and practice." Maya found herself nodding along with his words. This was exactly what she'd hoped to hear. She'd been worried that everyone would expect them to be naturally good at everything right. They spent the next 30 minutes learning basic punches and blocks. The movements felt awkward at first, like trying to write with their non-dominant hands. But gradually things started to feel more natural. Zara, who had always been better at dance and coordinated activities, picked up the footwork quickly. Maya, who played more sports, had an easier time with the power and timing of the techniques. During a water break halfway through class, the twins noticed the elite squad watching them again. This time, one of the boys made a comment that they couldn't quite hear, but it made his friends laugh in a way that didn't seem friendly. "They're just testing you," said the woman with the brown belt, who had introduced herself as Jennifer. "New students always get sized up by the established groups. Show them you're serious about training and most people will respect you for it." The second half of class focused on basic kicks. This proved to be much more challenging than punches. Balance, flexibility, and coordination all had to work together, and the twins found themselves stumbling more often than not. Several times Maya nearly fell over trying to kick higher than her leg would comfortably go. But something interesting happened as they struggled through the techniques. Instead of getting frustrated or embarrassed, both girls found themselves getting more determined. When Maya fell while attempting a side kick, she got right back up and tried again. When Zara's front kicks kept falling short of the target, she adjusted her stance and kept working until she started making contact. Master Rodriguez noticed their persistence and made a point of encouraging them in front of the whole class. "This is what I like to see," he announced. "Maya and Zara aren't worried about looking perfect. They're focused on getting better with each attempt. That's the attitude that creates real martial artists." The praise felt good, but the twins also noticed that it seemed to annoy the elite squad. The tall girl with the ponytail rolled her eyes dramatically, and one of her friends made a comment under his breath that sounded sarcastic. As class wound down, Master Rodriguez had everyone sit in rows for a brief meditation period. "Martial arts training doesn't end when you leave the dojo," he explained. "The discipline, respect, and confidence you build here should carry over into every part of your life." Maya and Zara sat quietly, trying to process everything they'd experienced in the past hour and a half. Their muscles ached in places they didn't know could hurt. Their uniforms were damp with sweat, and they were exhausted. But underneath the physical discomfort, they felt something else, a sense of accomplishment and excitement about what they might be able to achieve. After class, as they were gathering their things, Jennifer approached them again. "You two did really well for your first day," she said. "I've seen a lot of new students come and go, and most don't show the kind of determination you displayed today." "Thanks," Maya replied. "It was harder than we expected, but also more fun." "The hardest part is behind you now," Jennifer continued. "You've taken that first step, and you didn't quit when things got tough. That tells me you've got what it takes to succeed here." As they walked toward the exit, the twins overheard one of the elite squad members talking to his friends. "Great. More beginners who think they're going to be black belts in 6 months. I give them 2 weeks before they quit." Maya felt her cheeks burn with anger, but Zara grabbed her arm before she could turn around. "Don't," she whispered. "Let's prove them wrong instead." Outside in the car, their mom asked how the class had gone. Both girls were quiet for a moment, still processing the experience. "It was challenging," Zara finally said, "but we want to keep going." 3 months had passed since Maya and Zara first walked into Master Rodriguez's dojo, and the transformation was remarkable. What had started as awkward stumbling through basic stances had evolved into fluid movements that impressed even the most experienced students. Their white belts had been replaced first with yellow, then orange, each promotion coming faster than anyone had expected. The twins had thrown themselves into their training with an intensity that surprised everyone, including themselves. They arrived early to every class, stayed late to practice, and spent their weekends watching instructional videos online. Their dedication hadn't gone unnoticed by Master Rodriguez, who often used them as examples of what proper commitment looked like. "Look at Maya and Zara," he would tell other students during class. 3 months ago, they couldn't hold a basic stance for 10 seconds. Now they're executing combinations that some of my blue belts still struggle with. That's what happens when you put in the work. The praise felt good, but it also came with unexpected consequences. As the twins progressed through their belt levels ahead of schedule, the atmosphere in the dojo began to shift around them. What had started as friendly encouragement from most students gradually became mixed with something else. Whispers in corners, sideways glances, and an increasing sense of tension they couldn't quite understand. The elite squad, as they still called themselves, had watched the twins' rapid advancement with growing irritation. During their first month, the 3 black belts had largely ignored the new students, treating them like temporary visitors who would eventually disappear. But as Maya and Zara continued to excel, that indifference transformed into something more problematic. It started with small things that were easy to dismiss as coincidence. During partner drills, when the twins were paired with members of the elite squad, the exercises would become noticeably more intense. What should have been controlled practice sessions turned into barely contained contests of strength and skill, with the black belts pushing the boundaries of what was considered safe training. "Sorry," Devon, the tallest member of the elite squad, would say with a smirk after landing a particularly hard strike during sparring practice. "I guess I don't know my own strength." Maya rubbed her ribs where his elbow had connected, knowing full well that the contact had been intentional. But calling him out would mean admitting she couldn't handle the training, something she refused to do. The twins also began noticing that their equipment had a tendency to go missing. Water bottles would disappear from their bags, protective. Gear would be moved to different locations, and their spare uniforms would somehow end up in the lost and found box, despite being clearly labeled with their names. "Has anyone seen my mouthguard?" Zara asked during one particularly frustrating evening, searching through her bag for the 3rd time. "Maybe you should be more careful with your stuff," suggested Kira, the girl with the tight ponytail who seemed to be the unofficial leader of the elite squad. Her tone was helpful on the surface, but there was an undertone of smugness that made Zara's stomach tighten with anger. The real problems began when other students started treating the twins differently. Comments that had once been supportive became tinged with resentment. Students who had previously offered encouragement now made remarks about teachers' pets and special treatment. The twins found themselves eating lunch alone at school, as word of their rapid progress had somehow spread beyond the dojo walls. "I heard you 2 are getting promoted again next week," said Tyler, a red belt who had been training for over a year. "Must be nice to have things handed to you." Maya looked up from tying her belt, confused by the accusation. "What do you mean handed to us? We train just as hard as everyone else." "Do you, though?" Tyler's voice was loud enough for others to hear. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like some people get fast-tracked while the rest of us have to earn every single stripe on our belts." The accusation stung because it was so unfair. Maya and Zara had earned every promotion through hours of extra practice, perfect attendance, and consistently high performance during testing. But trying to defend themselves only seemed to make the situation worse. "We're not getting special treatment," Zara said quietly, but her words were drowned out by murmurs of agreement with Tyler's comments. Master Rodriguez had noticed the growing tension, but addressing it proved more challenging than expected. During one class, he made a point of explaining his promotion criteria to the entire group. "Belt advancement in this dojo is based on skill demonstration, knowledge retention, and character development," he announced. "Every student is evaluated by the same standards regardless of how long they've been training. Some people progress faster than others, and that's perfectly normal." His words were meant to clear the air, but they seemed to have the opposite effect. The elite squad exchanged meaningful looks, and several other students rolled their eyes in ways that suggested they weren't convinced. After class that day, Kira approached the twins with what appeared to be a friendly gesture. "Hey, you two, want to join us for some extra practice this weekend? We've got a key to the dojo and sometimes come in on Saturdays to work on advanced techniques." Maya's first instinct was to accept. The opportunity to train with black belts seemed like a chance to learn and maybe even bridge the growing divide between them and the advanced students. But something in Kira's smile felt off, like a trap disguised as an invitation. "Thanks, but we've got family plans this weekend," Zara said quickly, sensing the same unease her sister felt. "Maybe another time then," Kira replied, but her expression suggested there wouldn't be another invitation. The twins' rapid progress continued despite the increasing social pressure. During their orange belt test, they performed flawlessly, executing every technique with precision and power that impressed the examining panel. Master Rodriguez beamed with pride as he tied their new belts around their waists, but the applause from other students was noticeably less enthusiastic than it had been for previous promotions. "Congratulations," Devin said afterward, his handshake lasting just a moment too long and applying just a bit too much pressure. "You're really moving up fast. Some might say too fast." The comment hung in the air like a threat, but before Maya could respond, Master Rodriguez called everyone together for the closing ceremony. Things escalated the following week during a particularly intense sparring session. The twins had been paired with intermediate students for what was supposed to be light contact practice. Instead, they found themselves dealing with opponents who seemed determined to prove a point through force. Maya was matched against a green belt named Carlos, who had been training for nearly 2 years. Instead of the controlled techniques they'd been taught, he came at her with combinations that bordered on aggressive. Maya defended herself well, but it was clear that this wasn't the collaborative learning experience that sparring was supposed to be. "Is this supposed to be light contact?" she asked during a brief break, touching her lip where one of his punches had connected harder than necessary. "Sorry," Carlos said, but his shrug suggested he wasn't particularly concerned. "Sometimes things get a little intense when you're working with someone at your level." The implication was clear. Maya was being tested, and the test wasn't just about her martial arts skills. Zara was having similar experiences with her sparring partner, a blue belt who seemed to view their session as an opportunity to put the overconfident newcomer in her place. By the end of class, both twins were bruised and exhausted in ways that went beyond normal training fatigue. "How was class today?" their mom asked during the drive home, noticing that both girls were unusually quiet. "Fine," Maya said automatically, but her voice lacked its usual enthusiasm. Their mom glanced in the rearview mirror, clearly sensing that something was wrong. "You know you can talk to me about anything, right? If someone is giving you trouble at the dojo." "It's not that simple, Mom," Zara said finally. "We're doing well, maybe too well, and some people don't like it." "What do you mean?" Maya sighed. "We've been getting promoted faster than most students, and now everyone thinks we're getting special treatment, or that we don't deserve our belts. The advanced students are making training harder for us, and other people are starting to treat us differently." Their mom was quiet for a moment, processing this information. "Are you still enjoying karate? Are you learning and growing?" "Both." Girls nodded immediately. Despite the social challenges, they genuinely loved the training and felt proud of their progress. "Then don't let other people's jealousy or insecurity derail your journey," she said firmly. "Sometimes when you excel at something, people will try to tear you down instead of building themselves up. That says more about them than it does about you." Her words were comforting, but they didn't change the reality of what the twins faced every time they walked into the dojo. The elite squad's hostility was becoming more obvious. Other students continued to question their rapid advancement, and even some of the instructors seemed to be watching them more closely, as if waiting for them to prove the critics right by failing or giving up. That night, as they practiced forms in their garage, Maya and Zara made a pact that would define their approach to the challenges ahead. The tension that had been building for weeks finally reached its breaking point on a rainy Thursday evening in late October. Maya and Zara had just finished one of their most challenging classes yet, working on advanced combinations that would be required for their upcoming green belt test. Their bodies ached from the intense training, but their spirits were high. They were so close to achieving something that had seemed impossible just 6 months earlier. Master Rodriguez had been particularly encouraging that day, praising their technique and dedication in front of the entire class. "These two young ladies exemplify what it means to be a martial artist," he had said, gesturing toward the twins. "They've shown that with proper commitment and respect for the art, anyone can achieve excellence." The compliment had felt wonderful in the moment, but Maya noticed the way some of the other students looked at each other when Master Rodriguez wasn't watching. The elite squad's expressions had been particularly dark, their usual smirks replaced with something that looked almost threatening. After class, most students filed out quickly, eager to get home and start their weekends. The twins took their time gathering their gear, discussing the techniques they'd learned and planning their weekend training sessions. They had developed a routine of staying a few minutes after class to practice moves they found challenging, and Master Rodriguez had given them permission to use the space as long as they cleaned up afterward. "I think I'm finally getting that spinning kick combination," Zara said, retying her belt as they prepared to run through their forms one more time. "Your balance has gotten so much better," Maya agreed. "Remember when you used to fall over just trying to do a basic front kick?" They laughed at the memory, completely absorbed in their conversation. The dojo had grown quiet around them, and they assumed they were alone, except for Master Rodriguez, who was in his office finishing paperwork. That's when they heard footsteps. Behind them, the twins turned to see the elite squad emerging from the changing area, moving with the deliberate swagger that had become their trademark. Devin, Kira, and Antonio, the three black belts who had made the past few months increasingly difficult, approached with expressions that immediately put Maya and Zara on guard. Well, Kira said, her voice carrying that familiar tone, a fake sweetness that usually preceded trouble. "Look who's staying late again. Still trying to impress Sensei with your dedication?" Maya felt her sister tense beside her, but she tried to keep her voice calm. "We're just practicing. Is there a problem?" Devin stepped forward, his tall frame casting a shadow over the twins. At 17, he was 5 years older than them and easily twice their size. "Actually, there is a problem, a big one." The twins exchanged glances. They had been expecting some kind of confrontation for weeks, but now that it was happening, their hearts were racing with a mixture of fear and determination. "We've been watching you two," Antonio said, circling around to their other side so the twins were partially surrounded. "And we're tired of pretending everything is fine." Zara found her voice, though it came out smaller than she intended. "What are you talking about?" Kira laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Don't play dumb with us, you know exactly what we're talking about. This whole act you've been putting on, pretending to be these perfect little students who deserve to advance faster than everyone else." "We're not pretending anything," Maya said, her anger starting to override her fear. "We work hard for everything we've earned." "Work hard?" Devin's voice rose slightly. "You've been here less than 6 months and you think you're ready for green belt? Do you have any idea how long it took us to reach that level?" "That's not our fault," Maya shot back. "Master Rodriguez decides when we're ready to test, not us." The comment seemed to make Devin even angrier. "That's exactly the problem. You two have got him fooled into thinking you're something special. But we know the truth." Antonio stepped closer, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. "The truth is that you don't belong here. This isn't some after-school activity where everyone gets a participation trophy. This is serious martial arts training and you're making a mockery of it." Zara felt tears starting to form in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "We have every right to be here. We pay our fees just like everyone else." "Rights?" Kira laughed again. "Let me tell you about rights. We've been training here for 4 years. We've earned our black belts through blood, sweat, and countless hours of dedication. We've represented this dojo in tournaments and brought home trophies. What have you two done except show up and get handed belt after belt?" "We haven't been handed anything," Maya said firmly. "We've passed every test fair and square." Devin moved closer, close enough that the twins could smell his sweat and see the intensity in his eyes. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell Master Rodriguez that you've decided karate isn't for you. You're going to quit before you embarrass yourselves and this dojo any further. The twins stood their ground, though Maya could feel her sister shaking slightly beside her. We're not quitting, she said. We love karate and we're good at it. You can't make us leave. Can't we? Antonio asked, cracking his knuckles in a way that was clearly meant to be intimidating. You're just two little kids who think they know how to fight. We're black belts. Do you really want to test us? Zara stepped forward, surprising everyone, including herself, with her boldness. Are you threatening us? Because if you are, maybe we should go talk to Master Rodriguez about it. Kira's face twisted with anger. Go ahead and run to teacher. That's exactly what we'd expect from a couple of crybabies who can't handle real training. But before you do, Devin added, his voice taking on a more menacing tone, you should know that accidents happen in martial arts training. People get hurt. Sometimes they get hurt badly enough that they can't train anymore. The threat hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Maya felt her hands clenching into fists, all her training telling her to defend herself and her sister. But she also knew that any physical confrontation would be used against them, probably resulting in their expulsion from the dojo. You don't scare us, Maya said, though her voice was shakier than she wanted it to be. We should, Antonio replied. Because unlike you, we've actually earned the right to be here. And we're not going to let a couple of beginners ruin what we've worked so hard to build. Zara looked around the empty dojo, suddenly very aware of how isolated they were. Master Rodriguez's office seemed impossibly far away, and she wasn't even sure he was still there. What do you want from us? She asked, hating how desperate her voice sounded. Devin smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. We want you gone, permanently. This is your only warning. Quit now while you still can, or we'll make sure your karate journey ends in a way you won't forget. And don't think about telling anyone about this conversation, Kira added. Who do you think Master Rodriguez is going to believe? 3 black belts who've been his students for years, or 2 troublemakers who've been here less than 6 months? Maya felt something inside her snap. All the weeks of subtle harassment, the missing equipment, the accidental hard hits during sparring, the whispered comments and dirty looks. It all came rushing back in a wave of righteous anger. You know what? She said, her voice growing stronger with each word. We're not going anywhere. You can threaten us all you want, but we're not quitting. We love karate, we're good at it, and we have every right to be here. Zara nodded, drawing strength from her sister's courage. Maya's right. You can't bully us into giving up on something we care about. The elite squad exchanged glances, clearly not expecting such defiance from the twins they had been trying to intimidate. You're making a big mistake, Devin said, his voice low and dangerous. A really big mistake. The only mistake, Maya replied, would be letting you drive us away from something we love just because you're too insecure to handle a little competition. The word competition seemed to strike a nerve. Antonio stepped forward aggressively, and for a moment Maya thought he might actually attack them right there in the dojo. But then they heard footsteps from the office area, and Master Rodriguez's voice calling out, Is everyone okay out there? I thought I heard raised voices. The elite squad immediately stepped back, their threatening expressions quickly replaced with innocent smiles. Everything's fine, Sensei, Kira called back sweetly. We were just giving Maya and Zara some tips for their upcoming test. That's wonderful, Master Rodriguez replied, appearing in the doorway. It's great to see our senior students mentoring the newer ones. He looked around at the group, seeming to sense some tension, but not understanding its source. Well, it's getting late. You should all be heading home. As they gathered their gear, Devin made sure to bump into Maya's shoulder hard enough to nearly knock her off balance. Oops, he said with fake concern. Sorry about that. I guess I'm just clumsy. But as he walked past her, he whispered so quietly that only she could hear. This isn't over, not even close. Outside in the parking lot, Maya and Zara waited for their mom in silence, both processing what had just happened. The confrontation had been everything they'd feared and worse, but it had also revealed something important about themselves. They weren't going to be intimidated. Are you okay? Zara asked finally. The confrontation with the elite squad had changed everything for Maya and Zara. What had started as enthusiasm for learning martial arts had transformed into something much more serious, a battle for their right to pursue their passion without fear or intimidation. The twins knew they couldn't back down now, but they also realized they needed to be smarter about how they approached the challenges ahead. The answer came to them 3 days later when Master Rodriguez announced the upcoming regional tournament. This will be our biggest competition of the year, he explained to the assembled students. We'll have divisions for all belt levels, and I encourage everyone who's been training seriously to consider participating. Maya and Zara exchanged meaningful glances. They had been eligible for tournaments since earning their orange belts, but had never felt ready for that level of competition. Now, however, they saw an opportunity that went beyond winning trophies or medals. A tournament would be neutral, ground where their skills would be tested fairly, without the politics and intimidation that had poisoned their dojo experience. That evening, they approached their parents with a proposal that surprised everyone. We want to compete in the regional tournament, Maya announced over dinner. Their dad nearly choked on his water. Compete? Against other schools? Are you sure you're ready for that level of competition? We think we are, Zara said carefully, but we want to train harder than we ever have before. We want to convert the garage into a practice space. Their mom looked concerned. What's brought this on? You've never mentioned wanting to compete before. The twins had discussed how much to tell their parents about the elite squad situation. They didn't want to worry them unnecessarily, but they also needed support for their plan. There are some older students at the dojo who don't think we belong there, Maya said finally. They've been making training difficult for us. Difficult how? Their dad asked, his protective instincts immediately activated. Nothing we can't handle, Zara said quickly. But we want to prove ourselves in competition. Show everyone that we've earned our place through skill, not favoritism. Their parents exchanged glances, clearly sensing there was more to the story than they were hearing. But they also recognized the determination in their daughters' voices. If this is what you really want, their mom said slowly, we'll support you. But this has to be about your love for martial arts, not about proving something to bullies. It's both, Maya admitted. We do love karate. That's why we're not willing to let anyone drive us away from it. The garage transformation began that weekend. Their dad helped them clear out years of accumulated boxes and equipment, creating an open space large enough for forms practice and basic sparring. They installed mirrors along one wall, bought practice mats for the floor, and set up a small area with focus mitts and training equipment. Their older brother Jake, who had wrestled in high school, volunteered to help with their conditioning program. Tournament fighting is different from class training, he explained during their first session. You need to be in the best shape of your life, both physically and mentally. Jake's training regimen was brutal in ways the twins hadn't expected. While their karate classes focused on technique and form, Jake pushed them to develop the raw athleticism and endurance they would need for actual competition. They ran sprints in the backyard until their lungs burned, did endless sets of push-ups and sit-ups, and practiced explosive movements that would give them an edge in speed and power. Your techniques are already good, Jake observed after watching them practice their forms. But technique alone won't be enough if you're tired, or if your opponent is stronger than you. You need to be able to maintain your skill level even when you're exhausted. The twins threw themselves into this new training routine with an intensity that impressed everyone around them. They were up at 5:30 every morning, running through their neighborhood before school. During lunch breaks, they practiced forms in the empty gymnasium. After regular karate classes, they would come home and spend another hour in the garage, working on the specific weaknesses they had identified in their game. Their grandmother, who had been a track athlete in college, became an unexpected source of inspiration and guidance. She would sit in the garage during their evening sessions, sharing stories from her own competitive days. I was the only black woman on my track team, she told them one evening as they stretched after a particularly intense workout. There were people who didn't think I belonged there, who made comments about my hair, my background, everything they could think of to make me feel like an outsider. What did you do? Zara asked, genuinely curious about how her grandmother had handled the pressure. I ran faster than all of them, she said with a smile that hadn't lost any of its fierceness after 60 years. I trained harder, competed better, and eventually even the people who didn't want to accept me had to respect what I could do. Her stories became a regular part of their training routine. Maya and Zara learned about the mental aspects of competition, about staying focused under pressure, and about using other people's doubts as motivation, rather than letting them become sources of discouragement. As word spread through the dojo about the twins' intention to compete in the tournament, reactions were mixed. Master Rodriguez was supportive but cautious, wanting to make sure they understood the level of competition they would face. Some of the newer students were excited and encouraging, but the elite squad's response was predictably negative. Seriously? Kira said loud enough for half the class to hear, after Master Rodriguez announced the tournament participants. They've been training for 6 months and they think they're ready for regional competition? This is going to be embarrassing. Devon nodded in agreement. I almost feel bad for the other schools. They're going to think our standards have really dropped when they see what we're sending to represent us. Antonio added his own commentary. Maybe they'll learn something about real martial arts when they face opponents who actually know what they're doing. The comments stung, but they also provided additional motivation. Maya and Zara had reached the point where every insult from the elite squad only strengthened their resolve to prove them wrong. Their preparation intensified as the tournament date approached. They studied video footage of previous competitions, analyzing the fighting styles and strategies of potential opponents. Master Rodriguez, despite his initial concerns, began working with them on tournament-specific techniques and tactics. Competition? Karate is different from what we practice in class, he explained during one of their private training sessions. You need to be more aggressive, more decisive. Judges are looking for clean, powerful techniques that clearly score points. The twins adapted their training accordingly, working on combinations that would be effective in a tournament setting. They practiced scenarios where they would be behind on points and need to take risks, situations where they would be ahead and need to maintain their lead, and strategies for dealing with opponents who might try to intimidate or frustrate them. Their classmates began to notice the change in their performance during regular training sessions. The twins moved with a new level of confidence and precision that hadn't been there before. Their techniques were sharper, their conditioning was obviously improved, and they approached every drill with the focused intensity of serious competitors. Even some of the students who had been critical of their rapid advancement began to show grudging respect for their work ethic. Jennifer, the brown belt who had been friendly from the beginning, made a point of encouraging them. I've never seen anyone train as hard as you two have been training, she said after watching them work through a complex sparring drill. Whatever happens at the tournament, you should be proud of how much you've improved. But the elite squad remained openly hostile, and their comments became increasingly personal and cutting. They made jokes about the twins, embarrassing the whole school, suggested that Master Rodriguez was setting them up for failure, and predicted that they would quit karate entirely after being humiliated in competition. The psychological pressure was intense, but Maya and Zara had developed strategies for dealing with it. They had learned to use the negativity as fuel for their training, channeling their anger and frustration into more productive activities than arguing with their critics. One evening, as they practiced in their garage under the watchful eye of their grandmother, Maya realized something important about their journey. You know what? She said, pausing in the middle of a form. Even if we don't win a single match at the tournament, we've already accomplished something amazing. Zara looked at her sister curiously. What do you mean? 6 months ago, we couldn't even hold a basic stance properly. Now we're training for regional competition. We've learned to defend ourselves. We've gotten in the best shape of our lives, and we've proven that we won't be bullied into giving up on something we care about. Their grandmother smiled from her chair in the corner. That's the most important victory of all, she said. The competition is just a chance to show other people what you've already proven to yourselves. As the tournament date grew closer, the twins' preparation entered its final phase. Tournament day arrived with a crisp autumn morning that felt charged with electricity. Maya and Zara had barely slept the night before, their minds racing through everything they had trained for over the past months. Their alarm went off at 6, but both girls were already awake, staring at the ceiling and thinking about what lay ahead. The regional sports complex was buzzing with activity when they arrived. Hundreds of martial artists from dozens of schools filled the massive gymnasium, warming up on mats, stretching in corners and running through their forms with focused intensity. The sound of kicks hitting practice pads echoed throughout the space, mixed with the excited chatter of competitors, coaches, and families. Master Rodriguez had arrived early to register his students and scope out the competition. When he saw Maya and Zara walking in with their parents, he smiled with a mixture of pride and nervousness. "How are you feeling?" he asked, noting the determined expressions on their faces. "Ready," Maya said simply, and her voice carried a confidence that hadn't been there 6 months earlier. The elite squad had also made the trip, though their attitude toward the tournament was completely different. They moved through the warm-up area with the casual arrogance of experienced competitors, making comments about the easy competition and predicting quick victories. When they spotted the twins beginning their stretching routine, Devin made sure his voice carried across the mat. "I wonder if they realize this isn't practice class," he said to his teammates. "Real tournaments don't give participation trophies." Kira laughed loudly. "Maybe they'll learn something today about what actual martial arts looks like." Maya felt her jaw tighten, but she forced herself to focus on her warm-up routine. All those months of preparation, all those early morning runs and late evening training sessions had led to this moment. She wasn't going to let the elite squad's comments derail her focus now. The tournament brackets had been posted an hour earlier, and the matchups couldn't have been more dramatic if they had been scripted. Through what seemed like either incredible coincidence or cruel fate, Maya was scheduled to face Kira in the first round of the intermediate division. Zara would be competing against Antonio in a different bracket, while Devin was set to face the winner of Maya's division if she advanced far enough. "This is it," Zara whispered to her sister as they reviewed the bracket board. "Everything we've worked for comes down to the next few hours." Their parents had positioned themselves in the bleachers with a perfect view of both competition rings. Their grandmother sat between them, wearing the same fierce expression she had worn during her own competitive days decades earlier. Jake had borrowed a camera to record the matches, wanting to capture what he sensed would be a historic day for his little sisters. Master Rodriguez gathered his students for a final pep talk before competition began. "Remember everything we've practiced," he said, looking each competitor in the eye. "Trust your training, stay focused, and represent our dojo with honor." When his gaze fell on Maya and Zara, his expression softened slightly. "You two have worked harder than any students I've ever taught. Whatever happens today, I'm proud of how far you've come." The first matches began with younger divisions, giving the twins time to observe the competition level and adjust their strategies accordingly. The fighting was intense and fast-paced, with competitors displaying skills that were clearly honed through years of serious training. "The level is higher than I expected," Zara admitted, as they watched a particularly impressive match between two brown belts from competing schools. "Good," Maya replied, surprising her sister with the response. "We didn't train this hard to face easy opponents." When Maya's division was called to the staging area, she felt her heart rate spike despite all her mental preparation. Kira was already there, stretching with deliberate casualness while shooting occasional glances in Maya's direction. "Nervous?" Kira asked as they were called to check in with the judges. "Excited," Maya replied honestly, and she realized it was true. All the fear and anxiety had transformed into pure anticipation. The first match was everything Maya had trained for and more. Kira came out aggressively, trying to overwhelm her younger opponent with a flurry of techniques that would have easily defeated the beginner Maya had been 6 months earlier. But the girl standing in that ring was no longer a beginner. Maya moved. With the fluid precision that came from months of dedicated practice, she blocked Kira's initial attack combinations and responded with her own, landing clean strikes that scored immediate points with the judges. The crowd, which had expected a quick victory for the more experienced black belt, began to murmur, with surprise. "Come on, Kira," Devin shouted from the sidelines. "Stop playing around." But Kira wasn't playing around. She was giving everything she had, and Maya was matching her technique for technique. The younger girl's conditioning, honed through Jake's brutal training regimen, allowed her to maintain her speed and precision, even as the match wore on. In the final 30 seconds, Maya saw her opportunity. Kira, frustrated by her inability to dominate the match, overcommitted to a combination that left her momentarily off balance. Maya responded with a perfect reverse punch, followed immediately by a spinning kick that connected cleanly with Kira's midsection. The judges' flags went up simultaneously, awarding Maya the points she needed to secure victory. The gymnasium erupted, in cheers from the neutral spectators who had been drawn into the dramatic underdog story playing out before them. Maya bowed respectfully to her defeated opponent, but Kira's response was anything but gracious. "You got lucky," she hissed as they shook hands. This doesn't mean anything. But it meant everything to Maya, who felt 6 months of doubt and criticism melting away in the glow of legitimate competitive victory. Zara's match against Antonio followed a similar pattern, though with different dynamics. Antonio was bigger and stronger, but Zara had developed a strategy specifically for dealing with larger opponents. She used her speed and agility to stay out of range of his power techniques, while scoring points with quick, precise strikes that accumulated steadily throughout the match. The turning point came when Antonio, growing frustrated with his inability to land significant techniques, attempted a high kick that would have been devastating if it had connected. Instead, Zara ducked under the attack and responded with a perfectly timed sweep that sent her opponent to the mat. The three-point technique sealed her victory and sent her to the next round. The elite squad was beginning to realize that their predictions of easy victories and embarrassing defeats had been dramatically wrong. The twins weren't just competing, they were excelling at a level that forced everyone to reevaluate their assumptions. Master Rodriguez could barely contain his excitement as he coached his students between rounds. "I've never seen anything like this," he told Maya and Zara during a brief break. "You're not just winning, you're dominating opponents with years more experience." The tournament continued through the day, with both twins advancing steadily through their respective brackets. Maya defeated 2 more opponents, including a brown belt from a highly regarded school, before earning her place in the final round. Zara's path was equally impressive, as she systematically defeated every opponent put in front of her with a combination of skill and determination that amazed spectators. But the most dramatic moment came when Maya found herself facing Devon in the championship match of her division. The same student who had threatened her in the dojo weeks earlier was now standing across from her in a competitive ring, with neutral judges and hundreds of witnesses. "This is where your luck runs out," Devon said during the pre-match protocol, his voice low enough that only Maya could hear. "I don't believe in luck," Maya replied calmly. "I believe in preparation." The championship match was a masterpiece of competitive martial arts. Devon brought all his experience and physical advantages to bear, fighting with an intensity that reflected both his skill and his desperation to avoid losing to someone he had tried so hard to intimidate. Maya matched his intensity with precision and intelligence. Every technique Devon threw at her was met with an appropriate counter. Every strategy he attempted was neutralized by her superior conditioning and mental preparation. The match went the full 3 rounds, with both competitors pushing themselves to their absolute limits. In the final exchange, with the score tied and seconds remaining, Maya executed the combination she and Zara had practiced thousands of times in their garage. A feint to the body drew Devon's guard low, followed instantly by a perfectly placed kick to the head that connected with textbook precision. The gymnasium fell silent for a moment as the judges conferred, then erupted in cheers as Maya was declared the champion. She had done more than win a tournament. She had proven that dedication and character could overcome politics and intimidation. Zara claimed her own championship in the junior division, completing a sweep that sent shockwaves through the martial arts community. 2 unknown students from a small dojo had defeated established competitors from much larger, more prestigious schools. During the medal ceremony, as Maya and Zara stood on the podium with gold medals around their necks, the elite squad was forced to watch from the audience. The same students who had tried to drive them away